Welcome to Hacking the Hustle. This is your host, Benjamin Sklar, and our guest today is Jonny Price, Vice President of Fundraising at Wefunder. How you doing, Jonny?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
It's so awesome to have you on the show because as a securities lawyer and someone interested in the crowdfunding space, I consider Wefunder as one of the leading crowdfunding sites in the United States, arguably the world. So there's a lot to talk about.
Unarguably
in the world. I agree. And it seems like you guys have a unique relationship with Y Combinator companies, which are arguably the leading startups out of Silicon Valley. So you guys are up to something good.
Yeah, absolutely. You're probably referring to, we just launched 20 YC companies from the latest batch, the S22 batch, on the platform a couple of weeks ago. And so basically, you know, they went to the regular YC demo day recently, and now they're opening up the ability to invest in them to anyone, not just accredited investors, not just institutional investors, but anyone can go to wefunder.com/YCS22, Y Combinator Summer 22, YCS22. And invest $100 in, you know, 1 or 20 YC startups from this batch. Pretty cool. We went through Y Combinator ourselves back in 2013, a few years before I joined the team. So Wefunder was founded in 2012. I joined the team in 2018, but we went through YC in 2013. So yeah, we're pretty well plugged into the YC community. Certainly no kind of formal partnership there. I don't think YC, you know, formally endorses Wefunder or anything like that. I think they're pretty reticent to get into partnerships like that. But yeah, informally, it's been really cool to work with these 20 companies. And over the last few years, we've worked with dozens and dozens of YC founders that have raised capital on Wefunder. One of my favorite ever Wefunder founders is this company, Leah Labs. They came out of YC a few years ago trying to cure cancer in dogs. And I think they raised $500,000 or so in their first Wefunder round. And Wes Wilson, their founder, really credits that to you know, the company surviving, and now they're doing great. And they've raised a lot of money in follow-on grant funding. They did another Wefunder round. But you see some of the comments. What Wefunder is all about, right? It's like raising capital from a community of people that are really excited about what you're doing, either your product, your company, or in this case, the cause. And so many of the investors on Wes's campaign had all these messages like, my dog died of cancer. Like, I'm so excited and proud to be part of a company that's trying to find a solution to this. So that, for me, the mission element of that campaign made it one of my favorite ever ones. But yeah, super solid relationships with YC companies down the years at Wefunder.
What's something that you think startup founders out there in the world do not know about crowdfunding that you wish you could help them understand?
Yeah, I think probably the most obvious one is like that it exists, and you can raise capital from your customers as well as VCs. I think most founders, the default is just, well, it's only Reg D. They don't know about regulation crowdfunding. So making them aware of it to start with. The SEC made some rule changes, as you probably know, in March of 2021, where now you can raise up to 5 million. Previously, it was 1 million. Now you can roll investors up to one special purpose vehicle, one SPV on your cap table, which wasn't previously legal. So I think some people, the kind of perspective on Reg CF is out of date, so it's to update it. And then probably another one would be that this isn't either or versus VC, right? We rolled out this concept, we called it community rounds. We're trying to rebrand equity crowdfunding as community rounds. We don't think equity crowdfunding sounds good. It doesn't sound very prestigious. It sounds like something you do if you can't raise money from real investors. And so the idea of communityround.com is that, you know, this is something that you do even if you have the best VCs in the world throwing money at you, because as well as getting value from VCs who are taking a board seat and adding, you know, giving you advice and making connections, etc., as well as that, open up part of your round. Maybe it's, you know, Mercury Bank did 5 million of their 120 million Series B on Wefunder, 5% of the round, right? A pretty small amount, but they opened up to like 2,500 of their customers invest in them. And so that capital coming from thousands of your customers is pretty differentiated. And there's a clear, at least for us, there's a pretty clear advantage to a company of letting thousands of their customers invest in them and become owners in them, and have a stake and a share in the upside. And so for that kind of community rounds, that customer sourced capital as a complement to venture capital instead of seeing it as an either or thing, that's probably the biggest kind of philosophical thing that is the drum that we're trying to beat and the message that we're trying to put out to the world right now.
And on the flip side, what do you think investors, accredited and non-accredited, don't understand about Wefunder and regulation crowdfunding?
Yeah, so I've been kind of wrestling with this concept of negative signal recently. So I've chatted to a couple of VCs, and it's like, oh, crowdfunding is a negative signal. And sometimes it's true. Like the reason companies try to raise capital from the crowd is because they can't raise capital from VCs. So there's definitely like some validity to kind of, that kind of argument sometimes. What we're trying to do is to say, we want companies who can raise money from VCs, who I wrote this Twitter post recently about, dear hottest startup founders in America, where it's like, okay, the companies that have the best VCs in the world throwing money at them, community rounds are for them. And it's not, oh, I need to raise from my customers and community because I can't raise from real investors. No, it's like, I can easily raise from real investors. I just think it's going to be cool. And it's going to build community, it's going to engage and delight my existing customers. Maybe it's a marketing customer acquisition play as well, but like the point is, this shouldn't be a negative signal. This shouldn't be a lack of prestige. If you have Andreessen Horowitz leading the round or Sequoia leading the round, and then you also open it up to your customers, this can actually be a source of strength and a competitive differentiator and advantage that you have versus other competitors in your market. And so just trying to flip the perception, I guess. Right now, I tweeted the other day, right now, some people say it's a negative signal to raise capital from your customers and community. Our vision is a world where in a few years' time, it's going to be a negative signal not to do that. Or like the advantages of bringing on your earliest supporters and customers as owners and investors, the advantages of doing that are so clear that it's like, why would you not do that? Like, you're kind of really just missing an obvious advantage if you don't do that as part, as one of the, as 10% of your Series B, as 5% of your Series B. Doesn't need to be the whole thing, but yeah, that's just trying to flip the script on negative signal is the goal. And we've made some great strides. I mean, the March 2021 Reg CF rule changes have now paved the way for stronger and stronger companies doing this. Replic's another great example, also Andreessen Horowitz backed, raised $5 million from a few thousand of their users in a few hours on Wefunder earlier this year. So we're seeing more and more companies like that now that are choosing to go the community round path. And we hope over the coming months and years, that number will just continue to grow.
Makes a lot of sense, especially as the world gets more community focused. But I would say it's definitely B2C and not B2B.
Yeah, I think B2C is definitely the sweet spot. The only kind of pushback there, I mean, Mercury is a good example, a banking stack for startups. So I think they have, they're B2B, right? Their customers are startups, and they have 40,000 customers, and they raised $5 million in a few hours as part of a 120 million Series B. So it can certainly work for B2B companies as well. Like I would, Rippling, that would be a fun one. Their companies are startups and, enterprises. And so can definitely work for B2B, but yeah, I do think B2C is a sweet spot.
What are the biggest challenges that you as VP of fundraising are facing at Wefunder?
Yeah, I think, just trying to get the word out. It feels to me like we're crossing the chasm right now where, it's a relatively new thing, right? Like most startups go the Reg D path, right? And that's a well kind of trodden, like familiar path. And so, raising capital from your customers using this regulation crowdfunding exemption is new. And so I'd say, bold, kind of confident, innovative founders like Amjad at Replit or Imad at Mercury are willing to take that leap of faith and kind of embrace the future. Alexis Ohanian said recently, I think he was referring to the Replit rounds. This is going to be a new normal for startups raising capital. So we look around the corner into the future and see we're kind of moving in the right direction. But right now, it's more and more kind of early adopters, crossing the chasm. And so, that kind of driving that growth right now and making this more success stories, more case studies, more and more kind of commonplace is a challenge that we have as a team right now.
What's some advice you have for current CEOs and aspiring entrepreneurs on how to hack the hustle?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is a random thing to say. It's almost like an anti hack the hustle thing to say, but I just got back from a sabbatical. Wefunder has a policy where after 3 years, we offer 3 months sabbatical. It ended up being, it took me 4.5 years and I only took 6 weeks. But I didn't really feel like I needed more. But after 4.5 years of grinding at Wefunder and hustling, I think I was pretty exhausted and burned out. And I think kind of maybe just as bad, I was struggling to see the big picture, struggling to see the wood for the trees. I was really like down in the weeds. And so then going away for 6 weeks, I was very disciplined. I didn't check an email the whole time. I deleted Slack from my phone. And then when I came back, firstly, I was really re-energized, really refreshed, and just ready to just like go. But then also, I think I was thinking a little more clearly. So even though I wasn't really thinking about Wefunder for those 6 weeks while I was out, by just stepping back, I feel like since I've come back, I've just had a few strategic kind of insights and just kind of thinking a little more clearly about growth and strategy than I was before I left. So it's almost like a counter thing, like how to hack the hustle, like go off around Europe on vacation for a couple of months. But in the long run, I think that kind of you do need to kind of sustain the intensity and I think really committing to stepping back, both to kind of refresh the energy levels and recharge your battery, but also to kind of step back from in the weeds and just think a little bit more strategically and clear-headedly about the growth or whatever challenge you're focused on.
I love that. That's great advice. If 1 million people were listening to this, how could we all help you and accelerate what you're building?
Yeah, I think I'll just be a little selfish. I think like we didn't really talk about Wefunder's mission. So just to touch on that quick. So we're a public benefit corporation at Wefunder. Wefunder.com/charter is our mission. And so we have a kind of two-sided marketplace, right? Founders and investors. And on the founder side, what we're about is trying to get more capital flow into startup founders. We think startup founders are cool. We think it's cool when more people like are able to raise the capital they need to take their shot. And that could be a tech startup like Replit or Levels, or that can be a Main Street business like a restaurant or a coffee shop. We've had soccer teams raised on Wefunder. We've had movie producers raised on Wefunder. We've had biotechs raised on Wefunder. So we just think entrepreneurs and founders are cool, and we want to get more capital flowing to them. And right now, if you look at the percentage of venture capital that's going to Black founders, it's about 1%. Female-only teams is about 2% versus 80% to male-only teams. Right now, close to 80% of VC goes to 3 states, California, New York, and Massachusetts. So partly what we're trying to do is get more capital flowing to founders in aggregate, but also, get more capital flowing to women of color outside of the coasts. So that's kind of the mission on the founder side. And on the investor side, it's like, why should only rich people get to participate in investing in cool startups? I heard Jason Calacanis made 5,000 extra return on his 25K seed investment in Uber. I don't know if that's true. I heard it. And it's like, imagine if that 25K had been split around, 100 people investing $250, and we created 100 new millionaires. So, that's what we're trying to do on the investor side. And it's not just about the financial returns, but it's just letting more people kind of participate as owners in the journeys of, startups they love and founders they believe in and care about. So that's kind of our mission. And so I guess to your question on like, the million listeners hearing my voice right now, how can you get involved? You can become an investor on Wefunder in a couple of minutes for $100. Like anyone can now be an angel investor in startups, not just millionaires, not just accredited investors. So you can view, we probably have a couple of hundred or so startups live at wefunder.com/explore. So check it out. If there's a startup in your city, or like in a kind of vertical that you're interested in, or working on a cause you care about, check it out. You can become an investor in them for $100. And then on the founder side, if you are a founder, or if you know founder that's raising money, if you think they might be interested in engaging their community and their customers and investing in them, as well as rich people, then wefunder.com/raise is where they can go to learn more about that.
Awesome. All right. So before I let you go, my signature question that I ask all my guests is, if there was one thing you could do to improve this world, what would you do and why?
That's a good question. I was getting ready for a panel the other day that I was speaking on, and there was an hour-long prep call for the panel, and that was really annoying. So I think like removing like prep calls for panels is probably the most important one. But no, that was a tongue-in-cheek answer. I mean, I'm gonna be a little obnoxious and cliched and continue on the kind of Wefunder self-promotion tour. But we were talking about this before we jumped on. Like before Wefunder, I worked for a nonprofit called Kiva.org. We were trying to empower entrepreneurs living in poverty around the world. And so I feel like economic justice or economic equity, kind of dividing the pie a little bit more evenly is pretty near and dear to my heart. And trying to tackle the kind of worsening trends of economic inequality that we see in America or in England, where I'm from. And so that's really what we're trying to get at with Wefunder. We like capitalism, actually. We don't talk about replacing capitalism in our public benefit corporation charter. We talk about fixing capitalism. And basically the idea is, let's share the wealth that's being created by capitalism more broadly. And so, yeah, a more even distribution of the wealth that capitalism and technology is creating would probably be the answer to your question. And obviously Wefunder, we hope and believe, is one of those solutions. There's many other brilliant people working on many other solutions to that question. But Wefunder's our kind of corner of the earth that we're trying to tackle that question.
Incredible. Where can people find you on Twitter?
Yeah, at Jonny Price on Twitter, and wefunder.com if you wanna be an investor in Wefunder. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jonny, for hopping on the show today. Big fan of you, Wefunder, and your guys' mission.
Thanks, man. This was really fun.
See ya.
See ya.